There are other ancient Near Eastern flood accounts, and you talk about this a little bit in the book. Does this somehow threaten the biblical account? Because some have argued that the Jews just copied. They just copied a flood account from the Mesopotamians, changed some things. It's not really what happened. They just read about it somewhere, and they were just stealing from the culture around them. How would you respond? You kind of go over this in the book, but how would you respond to that?
Well, if they really read the accounts carefully, they wouldn't at all be inclined to say that Israel's just borrowing the account. Remember, nobody has to borrow the fact that an event happened. Everybody knows that the event happened. They all agree that there was a flood of some sort, and the Israelites didn't just learn that from Babylonians when they went into exile. They believed that a flood took place. What distinguishes the Israelite account from any other account is the interpretation of the flood. That's the most important part. We would call that the authoritative part, and that's the part that is most different from any other account that we see. So the idea that they borrowed the account makes it sound like they didn't even know anything about a flood until somehow they learned it from the Babylonians. There's no reason to think that. So they're writing about an event that everybody believes happened, and they're interpreting the event. And again, the interpretation is nothing like the Babylonian account. I likewise don't believe that they are giving their interpretation to argue against the Babylonians. They're just giving their interpretation because they think it's true. And so that's why they say what they say about it.
Yeah, I think it's really, you point out in the book that just because they come from the same culture doesn't mean someone stole it. For the very same reason, just because we have a constitution, French nation has a constitution, that doesn't mean they just copied ours. It's just part of the culture, the general modern culture, to have a system of government that includes a constitution in many countries. And in the same way, they clearly just have different theological views about the flood. Just because you have this flood account and that flood account doesn't mean that one was stolen from each other. It seems to be part of the culture. It seems to be they're all kind of viewing this sort of the same event in their own theological ways and whatnot. So
I refer to I use the metaphor of the cultural river.
Yeah.
That there's a cultural river that has a lot of common elements that everybody knows about, and the idea of a massive cataclysmic flood is part of that cultural river. Everybody knows about it, but they all have their own interpretations of it.